say your thing.
I say my thing. Awesome. So it is Friday, February 5th, 2016, and you are listening to On the Heels Wrestling Podcast. I'm Brittany.
I'm Kyle.
And I am Ray.
Well, that's who he is, and he is also the focus of our discussion today. But, as we say each time, we like to remind you all that we are huge fans of the pro wrestling and talking about the pro wrestling in a place where, we can not incur the wrath of our coworkers, though today we had a fun time discussing such things in front of them. And
it's kind of one of those I remember I should just save it for the podcast. This is
embarrassing.
Yeah,
we were reminded why we do this. So
nice.
This is a safe way for us to go to our favorite pastime without getting any confused looks. So
this podcast is all about giving you consistent, bite-sized commentary on the world of wrestling, primarily on WWE's main roster and NXT. We'll occasionally go through other international and indies once in a while.
Every week, we'll either recap the previous week's Raw, NXT, pay-per-view, takeover, whatever, or we'll hold a roundtable discussion on a particular topic. This week, we're following up with where we left off on our third episode. We're going to learn a little bit about Ray and how he got into the world of professional wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, Ray.
This is going to be good.
So, first question. When did you first start watching wrestling?
So, just to start off, I'm 31 years old, so I'm old.
Not as old as me.
Wrestling's kind of always been around since birth. My grandfather was big into wrestling. He used to watch La Lucha Libre, and for those that don't know, that's Mexican wrestling. And so he used to watch that all the time prior to me being born. My brother, who's about 5 years older than me, he also started getting into WWE, WWF at the time. And I think he started probably WrestleMania 3, like around that time frame. So I don't think there's a memory of when I first started watching wrestling.
It was just always a thing.
It was just always a thing. The very first thing I can remember that's significant was in 88. Was actually, there was a team called Strike Force. And this is Tito Santana and Rick Martel were this tag team. And they were awesome. And for me, like, you see all these wrestlers and, JYD and Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan. And you see all these different wrestlers, and for me, like, seeing Tito Santana, like, this is a Hispanic wrestler, and this is something, I'm not really caring about necessarily the race, but he looks like a family member.
He looks like you.
He looks like me, and, like, as a kid, I'm like, he looks like me. So does Rick Martel. I naturally thought Rick Martel was Mexican. He was Canadian. But, so...
Damn Canadians.
But, we had Strike Force... was this awesome team, and then Rick Martel turned on Tito Santana and became a heel, and this is my first instance of a heel turn, and it blew my mind. Like, wait, they're friends? Why would you
not anymore?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was my first real memory of wrestling.
God. So I lost out on the experiencing wrestling as a kid, but I think I take it for granted, like, how impactful a moment like that is, right?
Yeah.
Because your whole world at that point is, this guy is a good guy, this guy is a good guy. And when suddenly your world is torn apart and they aren't friends anymore, it's this really big deal.
It's an emotional thing.
Yeah.
And
it can draw on for a while, right? Like, if you think of a corollary to movies or something,
yeah.
Like, a heel turn, quote-unquote, as it happens in the movies, is usually resolved pretty quickly and the movie ends, and you're like, well, he got what was coming, he's a piece of crap, right?
Yeah.
But in the wrestling world, like, this guy, you go back,
for weeks,
and then you see him for weeks, and you're like, oh man, that guy.
Potentially years. Like,
yeah. So, you mentioned the Strike Force thing. Were they your favorite wrestlers? Because, we're obligated to ask, who was your favorite wrestler when you first started?
When I first started, in 88, this is considered the golden era of wrestling, and there's a reason for it, because at this point...
Unregulated steroids.
No. It's I mean, like... That could
we don't talk about that, Kyle.
Come on.
You have to understand that at this point in time, like, Vince just took over all the territories. There was like 30 wrestling territories, and he went one by one and took them all out and took their best wrestlers. So, like, you see, like, the Honky Tonk Man and, like, Jake the Snake. These aren't just, like, weird gimmicks that he threw together. Like, these are, like, the best wrestlers.
Established characters of that territory.
Of that era.
It feels like a giant...
like WCW. Like, he was taking some, but not all.
Well, I mean,
they're like the holdouts, right?
There's still a big portion of the NWA.
It feels like this, like when you hear a giant corporation buy like a smaller company, and then they start like laying everyone off and only
Vince
keeping
was
the
just blowing
product.
them away.
Yeah,
Like,
Vince is just like a parallel to corporate America.
Yeah. So for me, like, there are so many to mention at this point. But for me,
it's a great point. Like, now that you bring it up, like, yeah, that was the time.
That was the time.
Telling you to pick just one, especially telling you, specifically Ray, who we know loves wrestling, like, telling you to pick one, he's like excruciating.
He's like, we only have a half hour? We only have a half hour? What?
But from my memory, as a kid... Yeah. From being a kid, it was definitely Jimmy Snuka. And again, he was so agile, so powerful. And again, he kind of looked like me.
You.
So, like, it was just one of those... It's something that you don't recognize as a kid, but it totally plays into it. So yeah, I started in '88, and then we moved out into the next generation, which is '92 era. This is marked when Hogan leaves the company. This is when the trial happens, and pretty much from this point on, it's WWF is actually like going down. Like it's getting really bad at this point. There are some definitely still some good wrestlers. Bret Hart's still there. Owen Hart, like Michaels is coming up. Yeah. Like Razor's there. Like
that's right.
There are some good wrestlers in the WWF at that time, but like the storylines are poorly written. Like everything is really going bad as soon as Hogan left.
This is like the classic. Vince is still trying to do what worked in the '80s, but people aren't as into it. Meanwhile, WCW is starting to grasp what people want. Right?
Yeah. At this time, I think Ted Turner had just called up Vince and is like, oh, I'm getting into the wrestling business. And we start to see WCW and NWA move into Turner Broadcasting. And that's when 94 is when I started watching WCW. And I've never seen these wrestlers before. I don't know the history of these wrestlers. But, like, you see Vader. Vader is awesome. Vader is amazing. He's one of my favorite heels of all time. He's big. He's a big fat guy, but he's
mean.
He's mean. He's agile. He can do a moonsault off the top ropes. You have Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes, but they're like, it's at like the end of their like prime,
right?
Which is funny because like
they DDP.
Not
yet.
He was there.
Vintage Sting is my.
Oh my god, vintage Sting's there. The Steiners and Harlem Heat. Like,
when did Jericho come in?
Jericho was there right now, but he's like Lionheart Jericho.
Yeah.
Like,
this
Jericho
is before the man of 1,004 holds.
Yeah, this is not funny Jericho. This is like, I'm trying to get the crowd, baby. Like,
hasn't
just like,
quite figured out how this works.
Yeah, he has not.
Yeah, he's not even talking that much at this point.
Yeah, he's just screaming at the crowd.
Okay.
And then Hulk Hogan moves into WCW. And it's exciting at the time because but it's kind of weird too because...
Did you watch Bash at the Beach?
Oh, yeah.
Live?
Yeah. Oh, well, actually,
That's
no,
Kyle's
I take that
jealous
back.
Voice.
Here's the funny thing about pay-per-view in the 90s. In the 90s, pay-per-views, if you actually went to the channel...
Oh, the audio?
Yeah. So when the pay-per-view started, it would you would get all this fuzz and distortion, and you wouldn't be able to see the pay-per-view, but you would get clear audio. So it was like listening to wrestling via radio.
Oh, that's badass.
It was awesome. So like Bash at the Beach, my initial reaction is, oh yeah, no, we saw it live. They're like, no, we listened to it live.
You saw the clips on Nitro the next night, but you heard that stuff. Yeah. That's great.
So Hulkamania, when it comes to WCW, he's off the roids.
Right.
So Hogan is skinny. Like, it's weird.
He's like creepy skinny.
Yeah, like his face is elongated. It looks odd. And so like for me, that was like a major like I don't know if I'm behind Hogan and my brother at this time. He's like full heel mode, and he's like, no. Hogan, like, and especially when you go, especially when we get into Hogan versus Vader, because Vader, he is brilliant on the mic, and I can remember what he's like. I remember to this day what he said word for word is like I'm the U.S. champion, I'm the #1 contender. What is there left for me to do? You know, Hogan, you know how you kill a snake? You chop off his head, and it dies. And Hulkamania dies with it. Like, and I'm like, oh my god! Like, no one's talked to Hogan like that.
That's pretty intense.
And just super, like, really, really intense. So, like, going back into WWE, there's still Brett and Shawn. So that's still going on at the same time. There's a lot still going on in wrestling. It's fairly exciting. And then we move into the Attitude Era. And, like, in the Attitude Era, you're kind of, like, right before it happens, you're seeing people go back and forth. You're seeing people getting picked up by WCW, people getting picked up by WWE. It's an exciting time in wrestling. Like, your Monday Night Wars has started.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is like Ray's recollection of Monday Night Wars live, and it's great.
This is the Cliff Notes of wrestling of the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited about it.
All right, and so you're like, so I'm like going back and forth,
Yeah.
and I'm
Click,
watching
click.
Nitro, and then all of a sudden you see somebody come out of the audience, and it's Scott Hall. Okay, and I'm watching this live, and I'm like, oh, Scott Hall came over, like, that's awesome, that's great, but then he gets on the mic, and when he gets on the mic, like, again, another time where it's just etched in my brain, he's like, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here.
Oh.
And it's like, okay, like, he got signed. He's like, no. You want a war? You're gonna get one. And it's like, wait, what does that mean? What does that mean? What do you mean war? What do you mean war? Like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
There's subtext that I don't understand
and
here.
like for like a month.
Obligated to, remind everyone, this is pre-internet. So at that time, we didn't know.
Call the hotline.
Well,
Call the
not even that.
hotline.
Oh, yeah, that's an option. But, like, it was a viable conclusion to think, no, he just, on his own volition, was fighting the war for Vince and got on WCW TV somehow. That's ridiculous if you think about it now.
It was like at the time,
you could
just
talk
like,
predictions, but there was no dirt sheets, there was no Reddit, there was no nothing.
Yeah, so, and then Nash comes on, like, the next week, and he's like, there's two of us now.
Yeah. And they never say one way or another. They're always loosely, vaguely kind of keeping their old angle a little, but not all the way.
So Nash comes and he's with Hall and he's like, you think I'm big? Wait till you see at the pay-per-view.
Oh, yeah.
The third guy, he's even bigger than me. And like, my natural thing
That's how you sell a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And it was perfect.
Well, not just that, but the build-up to who that was.
Yeah.
We all know retcon, but like, you're like, who the heck, right?
Yeah, because like when you say that, I'm thinking Kevin Nash, who's bigger than Kevin.
Like taking it literally.
I was taking it literally because I was like, okay, who could it be? Mm-hmm. And me and my brother, like there was nobody from WCW. We thought it's somebody definitely from WWE. We thought it was Yoko. We thought it was Yokozuna because at the time he had been gone. We didn't know why.
Yeah.
It was obviously because health reasons.
Yeah. Yes.
But we didn't know why.
Right.
So we're like, oh my god, it's Yoko.
Again,
you could have even thought it was the Undertaker, just as big, right?
Yeah.
I mean, unlikely, but still, like, if you're thinking purely of bigness, right?
Anything is an option at that point.
We didn't think Undertaker just because of like Vince is so invested. It was our prediction was Yoko, and so it's Sting, Lex Luger, and Randy Savage versus Hall and Nash. They're the outsiders, and
they're supposed to be the third person was supposed to start with them, but then they delayed it, and so the whole match
is just 3-on-2.
Heenan and Tony Schiavone are just building up like, where is this guy? And Dusty was on commentary too.
Yeah,
and they kept doing the Civil War style, like, well, we got to get our WCW guys against these hooligans.
Yeah,
so like they built it up fantastically.
Even seeing Hogan come out. I don't think we were there yet. Like we were like
you thought like they wanted everyone to think that he was there to help WCW.
Yeah,
right?
and then for again one of those brilliant moments in life, as we're listening to this on the radio / pay-per-view, it clears up for a second and a leg drop happens on Savage.
You got that?
And it was awesome. Like, oh my god, Hogan went heel, and it was this huge, humongous thing, and we never thought it would happen.
No.
Yeah.
So
and then
it's like
the
Cena
speech
going
afterwards
heel, right?
too, like.
And so like the Monday Night Wars happens. You couldn't change the channel fast enough, man. Picture in a picture. If you had picture in a picture, you were living the life. Okay. Because man, you just were switching back, and then there was that one night where Rick Rude was on both channels.
Yes, that was fantastic.
That was fantastic.
What? And then when it started to tip WWF favor. And WCW got so desperate that they felt the need to start spoiling Raw on the weeks that Raw was taped.
Oh, I remember hearing about that. It's like, Mick Foley's going to win the title tonight. Yeah. You're like, well, what?
And they did it in such a... I mean, that's already a slimy thing.
Yeah.
But they're like, remember that jobber, Mick Foley, for us? Like, he sucked here? Yeah, he's their champ now, so you don't need to watch. Stay where the big boys play. You're like, wow.
Wow.
It's getting pretty low.
Getting a little heated. And so around this time, in about 96, my brother is catching, like, at 2 in the morning, like, he's like, dude, I'm watching this wrestling at, like, 2 in the morning. And I'm still, like, it's 96. I'm in 6th grade.
Okay.
So, like, 2 in the morning is foreign to me. I can't do that. So, like...
It does not exist in reality.
Yeah, so he starts recording 2 in the morning ECW TV, hardcore TV, and so we start to see like Brian Pillman and like the Sandman, all these things. Like RVD is like the television champion, Sabu, Taz. Like I'm seeing all this thing. I'm like, what is this? And then like Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit, like they keep talking about like they left, and like so like there's all this like crazy ass like wrestling, and it's like they're playing like awesome music.
Yes.
They're playing like White Zombie, they're playing like Slayer, they're playing, and then whenever New Jack comes out, all of a sudden you hear the glass shatter, and it's Natural Born Killers by Dr. Dre and Ice Cube. It's just such a unique environment. The crowd is the other man in the ring. They're throwing chairs in the ring. Like it's nuts. And so they have the pay-per-view. November to Remember 97, we paid for that. They're the only pay-per-views we ever paid for were ECW pay-per-views. And we saw like incredible matches, and then Heatwave 98. Heatwave 98 was one of the best ECW pay-per-views. And you had Hayabusa and Jinsei Shinzaki versus RVD and Sabu.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Like
I remember
the
that one.
best like the best wrestlers at that moment. Tag team match. Awesome.
This is 1998, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this
Okay,
is
I just
98.
want to cut in real quick and mention that at WrestleMania last year, I saw a match with the Hardy Boys versus RVD and Sabu in like a hotel ballroom.
Yeah.
So it's like 15 years later, and this shit is still crazy.
Yeah. 2000, I'm in 10th grade, and it's Heatwave 2000, and they're coming to Los Angeles.
Oh,
the
damn.
Olympic Auditorium, and me
damn.
and my brother and my cousin are there, and we watch this pay-per-view, and it's awesome. And there's also even drama that happens in the back. There is a local promotion called XPW that is ripping Paul Heyman off big time, and they actually are in the front row, and their fight ensues for real.
Oh, I remember seeing
For
that.
real, with ECW wrestlers and XPW wrestlers, that leads into the back alley where my brother was, and he like full on saw like New Jack like hitting somebody with his crutch. Like there's like a full on brawl going on, like for real, and it was nuts. Also, Heatwave 2000, the first Van Terminator. I saw that live. Do you know what the Van Terminator is?
No.
I don't remember that one.
Okay,
That was
so
like right around
do you
when I
remember
dropped off.
Shane O'Mac Coast to Coast?
Yes.
Yes.
I remember hearing about
He
it.
stole that from the Van Terminator.
Okay.
Basically, RVD jumping from one side of the ring to the other, turnbuckle to turnbuckle, and drop kicking the guy in the face. So the Attitude Era was awesome, and then we get into the Invasion Era where WCW's sold, ECW goes under, and all of a sudden, again, this is that moment where all of the best wrestlers in the world are in one.
I'm sorry, I just gotta make the joke. This was the answer to what was your favorite wrestler when you first started watching wrestling?
Yeah.
And you have organically gone through the list of questions you created without even needing to be asked.
Yeah, Kyle and I keep turning to each other, and it's like, well, we got that one, all right.
So keep going. It's working out great. It's just pretty awesome.
Okay, so the Invasion Era. So WCW, ECW's in it, but like Kurt Angle, Austin, Rock, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Brock Lesnar.
Did you watch One Night Only?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
ECW
live?
Well, yeah, I bought the
Not
paper.
necessarily live, but yeah,
I
that
bought the
one was
paper.
one of
That's
the
when he
best.
breaks the streak and starts buying pay-per-views that
Yeah.
aren't ECW.
Yeah.
The radio era has ended.
Yeah, the radio ender at this point had ended. So there was a lot of incredible matches. Angle versus Benoit. Angle versus Shane O'Mac.
Yes.
Oh man, Shane O'Mac was such a good wrestler.
Yeah,
He was
deceptively, surprisingly good.
He was really good at taking bumps.
Yeah.
He had so much hops.
Yeah.
Eddie Guerrero versus Brock Lesnar. There was just Eddie Guerrero versus Brock Lesnar. One of the big things I will say to anybody listening, look up Eddie Guerrero's promo against Brock Lesnar where he describes what Latino heat is.
Ooh.
It chills Eddie Guerrero explaining all of the things that he went through in the past 2 years with his drug addiction, with his divorce, losing his kids, like everything in that moment.
And it's real.
And he describes it as like, that is what drives me, is all this loss and all this pain and being told I can't do it because of it. And that's the heat. So that Eddie Guerrero,
beautiful.
Yeah. So, and then we get into like 2006 era, like the Ruthless Aggressions happen. John Cena's in. Brock Lesnar's like the big
Ruthless Aggression.
Oh yeah. And then Eddie dies.
Is that when you stopped watching?
It's not when I stopped watching, but I don't think I've ever really felt like I followed Eddie since the early WCW days.
Yeah.
And so he's always been like top of the list. And he when he passed away, I don't remember crying this hard for anyone that wasn't a family member.
That's a great way to put it.
And it was really difficult to see that because his story is very inspirational to me. It's not just a Latino thing. That's a plus. It's definitely nice to be like, a Latino wrestler.
I mean, there's a lot of history there, like Mexican culture with the lucha libre, and it's a big thing, and it's something that I always forget about. That is something that you can seek out and say, no, this is why. This is another reason why I love this.
Yeah, but I think more than anything, it's seeing that somebody could have so much loss and then finally be redeemed. And
I think that's the hardest part.
And I think why I cried so hard was when it first happened, the natural reaction was he OD'd. And so I thought, like, that redemption is gone. Like, it's not real. Like, that fairy tale is over. But then like a day or so later, you find out it's heart disease from the steroids. Yeah. And it's a little different of a story,
drugs.
Yeah, it almost feels swerved in a way.
Yeah,
right?
it's something...
It almost feels like a wrestling storyline.
Yeah. So, Eddie dies.
Imitating life.
Eddie dies, and then Benoit dies. It's a really weird thing because, of course, Chris Benoit murdered his child.
His wife and his child.
And also committed suicide.
Yeah.
WWE likes to paint it as Chris Benoit is this monster, and we'll never mention him again.
Which is silly because, so as someone who's only recently gotten into wrestling, it's learning about Chris Benoit the first time. It's like, wait, who is this guy that we kind of just choose to not talk about? And then you read about it and you're like, oh, wow. But you read about what happened when it was happening. Yeah. And before they had realized that he had actually murdered his family before committing suicide, it was this big tribute thing. Yeah. Like, look at all these wonderful things he did and all this, blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as you find out the real story, they just fully distance themselves. Yeah. And it's a really unfortunate thing. Like, I know the circumstances are terrible, so I don't know what I would have done in that case if I'm running a multi-million-dollar corporation. But it's just, it's really sad, right?
Yeah. It's one of those things for me, WWE initially probably took the right course of action, and even still is doing what's best for their company.
Yes.
Because Chris Benoit, his brain, after they did the autopsy, his brain has the levels of dementia of a 60-year-old with dementia, like high levels of dementia,
and that's just from all the head trauma.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So WWE being very sensitive to, like the NFL.
After the fact.
of taking any sort of blame due to concussions for some of these, suicides, for any of these it's that happen with athletes. They're doing right by them, but not necessarily by their wrestler, and it's pretty sad, and it's unfortunate, but it's kind of expected. So
the Benoit stuff kind of led to you sort of decelerating, right?
Not only that, but it just the product was getting stale. Brock left. The only one that's keeping things going is
Rock's gone by now.
Yeah, Rock and Austin are gone. Cena is
rinse repeat.
He's the same character he was now, but 15 years ago.
So at this point, I pretty much left and the PG era started.
Hey.
I would occasionally catch some TNA, some WrestleManias. Like, I have a lot of friends that like watch WrestleManias like again and again and again, and so I'd occasionally catch a WrestleMania. That's why I knew the WrestleMania you guys were talking about with the Miz.
Yes.
Because I was like, oh yeah, I watched that one.
I watched
it. It
that.
was awful.
Yeah. Well, and you had all this history to go back on.
Yeah.
So, like, you were the golden era and everything with wrestling. So, yeah, your standards are a little higher than us casual fans at the time.
And so, TNA was good right when it started, and then Hogan got involved, and it went to shit.
Okay.
But TNA for a little bit was good, but I was so just not invested anymore that it was kind of like I catch it every once in a while.
It felt like they were following a recipe out of the wrestling cookbook.
Yeah, they were following the NWA WCW cookbook, and it's not bad, but it's it's not new, it's not innovative, and they started doing some stuff with the X Division that were really really great, but outside of that, it was still a stale product.
So what brought you back?
So it was 2011, June 27th. Look it up. I wrote it down.
Yeah,
I wrote it down.
Nice.
CM Punk pipe bomb.
Yep.
So
Actually,
hold on, did you hear about it? Or
I heard about it 2 days later. So
okay, yeah,
July
'cause obviously
29th.
It'd be a little weird if you just happen to tune in that
Happened
day.
to be
I
watching
got
Raw that day.
So many text messages. I got so many like Facebook messages saying you need to
You
check
need to
out
get back
YouTube.
into this.
You need to check out YouTube. Like not even get back into it. You need to check out YouTube. And so I saw a link. I watched it, and I'm just like, holy shit! Like, here's the thing: shoot promos were very, very popular in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the last shoot promo that happened was probably in 2001 with Paul Heyman.
Yeah.
Oh.
Paul Heyman's shoot on Vince McMahon as the Invasion storyline went on was it.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of funny, seeing as the next one to open it back up is all CM Punk.
Yeah.
And
A
the
Paul Heyman
correlation
guy.
between
Yeah.
the two. The Paul Heyman guy.
Yeah. So I watched it, and then I watched Raw,
Yeah.
and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And it got better and better and better, and then the pay-per-view happened, and he won.
Oh my god.
And then he won the title.
Yeah.
And I watched that pay-per-view live, and from there the product kept getting better. And so since then I've been back.
So you've been consistent since then?
Yeah.
And you've even endured like sort of the mini slump in between him and DB, right?
Oh yeah.
And all that stuff.
Slump
it was
after
bad.
DB.
And then now our mini slump that we're in now that's slightly getting better.
Yeah.
It's
So-
kind of more like just a series of small hills.
Yeah, in comparison. So you're currently watching now, obviously. Is there anything else you watch in addition to WWE main roster and NXT stuff?
You know what? I'm not really anymore. Raw and NXT are pretty much it. I catch YouTube clips of different promotions,
Right.
especially New Japan.
Yeah. If I come into your office and go, dude, you gotta watch this.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, but I don't watch anything like full episodes of
Right,
any
yeah.
show. I love catching up on Ring of Honor, like old episodes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
Like old Samoa Joe episodes, and like I love looking back at some great matches. I want to get into Lucha Underground. I haven't honestly.
Season
like,
2 starts this week, doesn't it? This week or
I
next?
believe so. Yeah. So I mean, like I've watched. I think I watched like 3 episodes of Lucha
me
Underground
too.
season
Every
1.
episode I watched was great. I don't know why I haven't watched all of it.
Because
There's
even
too much
you
wrestling
don't
to
have
watch.
enough time. Yeah,
Yeah.
There's too much wrestling to
It's
watch.
too
Too
much
much
wrestling.
wrestling.
It's good though, and it's there, and you can go back to it. And fortunately, with them, you have less of a chance of it being sort of spoiled.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's good.
Plus, it's a season. It's not like a weekly thing.
Yeah.
So favorite current active wrestler.
Favorite active wrestler. We're including those that are on the injured
Those that
list
are
and
injured.
coming
Situation we
back.
had.
Injured, likely to come
soon
back.
to
Okay.
be soon to be healed.
So I'm gonna go with I think we both agree on this. Seth Rollins.
Yes.
He's. I love that.
Dude,
the best-
so,
best laugh.
it's so cheese.
He's the architect of the best laugh ever.
Oh my god.
So good.
Yeah. Rollins is just match after match. Great performer. Incredible on the mic. Like he is to me the complete package.
Yeah.
Um,
He's so good, and it's he's so good at doing like the Steve would say chicken shit heel
Yes.
thing. But then when the match starts, he's going all out, almost face style,
Yeah.
right? Except they just don't let him hit top rope moves because if you're a heel, you're not allowed to.
Yeah, you're not
right?
allowed to.
But
You're allowed to miss.
His eventual face turn and amazing,
Will be the
moonsaults and
Phoenix
frog
Splash.
splashes will be great. Yeah,
It's kind of incredible because he had the nickname of the undisputed future of the WWE.
Yeah.
And I 100% agree with it.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel
Yeah.
like that tagline is just so well done and perfect for that character.
Asterisk, as long as his knees hold up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
However, there are some I have to mention, which is Asuka.
Yes.
I love Asuka.
She's great.
Kevin Owens.
Oh, yeah.
She's one of the best heels right now.
Ever.
And then Sasha.
Yeah.
You gotta love some Sasha.
All right, so we're like 4 for 4 aligned right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
This is great.
I think I know why we're friends.
Yeah.
But I think also, like, Sasha calls back to Eddie Guerrero as the
Oh,
reason
yeah.
she got into wrestling. So
Yeah.
I think for you in particular, that might be something that has kind of
Yeah.
made you connect with Sasha a little bit. Because I know
I
she
just
tries
think
to bring a
she's-
lot of that, like, charisma into her match.
She's
yeah.
just like, as you're describing Rollins, like to me, like she is that in the women's division. Like
Yes.
she is like perfect.
Yes.
She's awesome, and I don't use that word a lot.
You
so-
even complained about using that word earlier.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So I mean, like right now, that's definitely my going on right now.
All right.
Of all time.
All right, that was our sort of last scripted question. All time.
Of all time.
Of all
All time.
I'm gonna go.
All time.
I'm gonna go with Eddie Guerrero.
Yep, all right.
I mean, I kind of alluded to that, but
Sure.
technically one of the best wrestlers ever. Great on the mic, great heel.
Yeah.
I also another two to mention as far as heels go is gonna be Roddy Piper.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk about somebody who loves to get heat and can get heat?
Yes.
Roddy Piper.
And he did it wearing a skirt.
And
Yes.
he did wearing a skirt, and he also didn't have a Scottish accent.
I know.
He had
did whatever.
He had a Minnesota accent, don't you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
And then Jake the Snake Roberts
Yeah.
put the Undertaker, to shame.
Yes.
As far as terrifying.
That's awesome. Yeah,
All right,
that's a solid list.
I am re-excited about wrestling after just sitting here and listening to Ray for a half hour. So I think I need to just turn on the network and watch it for the next 4 hours.
Yeah. That was like a great whirlwind tour of
The cliff notes
the
of
golden
wrestling.
age. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right, so that'll about wrap it up for this week. If you like the podcast, you can find us on Twitter at OnTheHeelsWP and on Facebook.com/OnTheHeelsWP.
Like us, Big L and Little L. Follow us. Tell your wrestling friends about us. And tweet or message us if you have questions or topics that we can hit up on the future or want our opinions on a certain subject.
Tune in to next week's episode where we'll be recapping Raw and finally
Finally!
some NXT. So thank you for listening on the Heels Wrestling Podcast, where we ask the internal question: will Sheamus ever connect with the audience?
Maybe.
Nah.
I mean, I'm holding out hope.
What if they send him to NXT?
Which one is Sheamus?
Oh, God.
They send him to NXT?
Oh,
It'd be like the
that's
opposite
worse.
of, Hype Club.
On the Heels Wrestling Podcast.